Okay. Thank you for joining. So today we're starting a new unit, which is Unit 5, Legislation, Regulation, Ethics, and Code of Principle. So in this unit, we have learning outcome, and then we will discuss, we'll have our assignments discussion. And from our unit, we can see that our unit aim is that IT practitioners in modern world should understand how legislation and regulation applies in the IT sector. So they should also understand why organizations create policies and procedures to help them to operate on a day-to-day basis. They should have an appreciation of a range of ethical issues and should be aware of the role of professional bodies in setting standards to maintain the industry in the industry. So the learner should also be familiar with the concept of professional certifications. For example, there are some organizations that require specific professional certifications as part of the prerequisites for industry jobs. So in today's session, we're going to understand what are the current and regulatory issues in IT. So we'll describe IT legislation in regulation to data protection, which will now include digital system and cybersecurity. We will then explain the relationship between legislation, regulation, data system, and data system security. And then we will look into explain the importance of complying with the legislation in regulation to human-computer interaction design. So after introducing our unit aim, so as you mentioned, in today's session, we're going to understand the current and legal issues which are occurring in IT. So the issues that we can have can be due to a wide range of topics, and we'll look into each of them. So issues can be related to data protection. So when there are breaches or leak of data, companies have been facing a lot of consequences for this, which is not just financial, but even regarding the reputation of the company. So that's why we have GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation, which came into effect in May 2018. And it is a critical piece of legislation which is affecting how personal data is handled within European Union. So whenever there's like cyber attacks and there's a leak of data, companies must have consent to handle the customer data, and all of this has to be done through a GDPR policy. So what are the key aspects of GDPR? The aspects are the consent. Obviously, companies must obtain explicit consent from the customers or stakeholders. Right to access, where individuals have the right to access their personal data, which has been held by the company. And normally after a while, companies always ask to their customers if it's okay for them to delete the details, the data regarding the subject. So we have right to be forgotten, where individuals can request deletion of the data. And data breach notification, where organizations must report the data breaches to the relevant authorities within 72 hours. Cybersecurity. So this is a key piece of EU regulation which aim to enhance the overall level of cybersecurity awareness across each member state, and it requires operators of essential service and digital service providers to implement appropriate security measures, and also they have to notify authorities of serious incidents. What are the key requirements? So we need security measures, which has to be in place with implementation of appropriate technical and organizational measures. Incident reporting, so we have to be able to obtain reports with significant security incident to national authorities. Then we have national strategies, where members states must develop national cybersecurity strategies and design competent authorities. Then we have intellectual property, which is pretty much related to copywriting and digital content, where people own these assets by declaring that this is their own trademark, that they legally own this. So as you can see, copyright directive, also known as DSM directive, addresses these challenges by updating rules to better reflect the digital environment. So the key provisions, so when it comes to online content sharing, we now have platforms that can store and provide public access to large amount of protected content, which must obtain licenses from right holder. Then we have text and data mining, where researchers can use text and data mining techniques on copyrighted works that they have lawful access, and also under certain conditions. Also, we have emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, where with the European Commission has proposed a comprehensive framework for AI known as Artificial Intelligence Act. This is going to regulate and address the risk associated with AI systems, and it can also establish clear rules to ensure that they are safe and respected fundamentals rights. So what are the key components? So we have risk-based approach, where AI system can be classified into risk categories. And we have compliance, where providers of high-risk AI systems must adhere the specific requirements, including risk management and data governance. And governance, where we have to establish of national supervisory authorities to oversee the compliance. So now we're going to describe the key legislation in relation to data protection, digital system, and cybersecurity. So here we have a chart which shows us what are the key aspects. So we already introduced data protection earlier, where we said that it came into place 2018. And what are the aspects? Is going to implement GDPR in the UK, covers all the lawful processing of data, of personal data, data subject right, and data protection. Then we have, when it comes to digital system, we have Computer Measures Act 1990, where the key aspects are going to criminalize unauthorized access to computer system, unauthorized modification of data, and intent of impair operation. And lastly, we also have Digital Economy Act, which came into place 2017, which is going to address digital infrastructures, online pornography access restriction, and public service data sharing. When it comes to cybersecurity, we have ISO and IEC 27001. So we are now looking into international standards for information security management systems. So what are going to do, they're going to provide requirements for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improve an ISMS. Also, we have Cyber Essential, where companies can even get certified by the government, and they can add the Cyber Essential badge to the website, where with the UK government-based scheme, this is now going to help organizations to protect against common cybersecurity threats. And it basically focus on 5 keys control, which are firewalls, secure configuration, user access control, malware protection, and patch management. So normally, company have to take they have to complete an assessment, and once this assessment is done, they can finally have the badge. Have you ever heard of Cyber Essential, Johnny?
It's definitely familiar, right? Cybersecurity is definitely something that we're looking to in sort of my work. I definitely, unfortunately, well, I say I've had a lot of involvement with a lot of the sort of like data protection, data regulation sort of stuff as well.
Yeah.
I'm not our DPO, so our data protection officer, but I do deal predominantly with most of the subject access requests and freedom of information requests that we get in, and I tend to
Okay.
pass the data protection officer before they're then shared with whoever's put in the request. So yeah, it's all fairly familiar stuff. The cybersecurity stuff probably don't know as well as data protection,
Yeah.
but it's sort of stuff I'm somewhat familiar with.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And also, from here we can see we have intelligence collection and law enforcement. So we have Intelligence Service Act 1994, where it establishes the legal framework for the UK's intelligence service, including MI15, MI16, and GCHQ, where this is going to provide oversight mechanism and operational authority. Also, we have regulation of Investigatory Power Act 2000 and Investigatory Power Act 2016, where these are going to now regulate the power of public bodies to carry out surveillance and interception of communication, set out the lawful basis for investigating activities. So here we have the detailed description where we can now go through, look into the objective and the key provisions for each of them. So now we're going to look into explaining the relationship between legislation, regulation, and data system security. So the relationship between legislation, regulation, and data system security is an integral and multi-phased encapsulation which establishment of legal frameworks, standard for the best practice, and mechanism for enforcement and oversight. What this means that these elements will now work together to ensure that the protection of data and the security of information. So we can now see below where I'm going to explain the relationship of all these key regulatory standard and practice. So we introduce ISO and IEC 27001, which I do believe people can get certified, can get a certification for it as well. So this is in internationally recognized standard that provide a comprehensive framework for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continuing improving an information security management system. So organization can systematically manage sensitive data to ensure it is confidential and it keeps integrity and its availability. So what are the key elements? We're looking into risk assessment, security policy, asset management, access control, cryptography, physical and environmental security, incident management and compliance, and audit. So Cyber Essential, which we've already explained, we've looked into how companies can gain the badge, where they can simply go through the government website, and there is some criteria and that they need to do. They need to conduct a self-assessment, fill in all this information, and that's how they achieve the Cyber Essential badge. So when it comes to NIST cybersecurity framework, so the relationship to data system security, this is going now to include National Institute of Standard and Technology, which has cybersecurity frameworks to provide a policy framework of computer security guidance for how private sector organizations in the US can access and improve the ability to prevent, detect, and respond to cyber attacks. So what the key element? This is going to be identifying critical assets, protecting those assets through appropriate safeguard, detecting cybersecurity event, responding to detective events, and recovering from incidents. So we have also Intelligence Service Act 1994, which we have mentioned, where it is an intelligence service which provide the legal basis for operation of the UK intelligence agencies, such as MI15, MI16, and GCHQ. And what it does, this act outlines the roles, responsibility, and power of agency, including the collection and processing of data national security purpose. What are the key elements? This gives now legal authority for intelligence activity, oversight by Intelligence and Security Committee, and provision for ensuring activity comply with legal and ethical standards. Also, we have regulation of Investigatory Power Act 2000 and also Investigatory Power Act 2016, where we've looked into them from our chart and we've seen that what they do. These are going to expand the surveillance capabilities of UK intelligence and law enforcement agencies. It is going to legalize bulk data collection and provides new power for the authorities to access and interfere with electronic equipment. What are the key elements? This bulk interception and acquisition of data, equipment interface, retention of internet connection records, and oversight by investigatory power commissioners. So we also have standard for good practice in cybersecurity. So one of them, as we mentioned, is ISO 27001 Cyber Essential NIST framework relationship to data system security. So these standards are going to provide the structured approach to managing cybersecurity risks. The benefit of them is that we're going to have enhanced protection of sensitive data, improved incident response capabilities, reduced risk of cybersecurity attacks, and compliance with legal and regulatory requirements. So in conclusion to this learning outcome, the relationship between legislation, regulation, and data system security, it is now crucial in creating a secure digital environment. Now, on our final learning outcome, we're going to explain the importance of complying with legislation in relation to human-computer interaction design. So what do we mean by that? Is that we need to look into the importance of complying with legislation in relation to human-computer interaction, where by complying with this regulation in the context of human-computer interaction, it is crucial for ensuring that software and system are not only legal, but also user-friendly, reliable, and efficient. So here we have a nice chart which shows us what are the impact of the legislation. So we'll now discuss about functionality, where compliance ensures that systems operate within legal boundaries, avoiding features that could infringe of a user right or privacy. For instance, data protection law requires that any functionality involving personal data must have a robust security measures and explicit user consent. So functionality, usability, reliability, efficiency, maintainability, and portability, these are all aspects that will have to be taken into consideration when it comes to looking into the impact of legislations. Also, we have to be aware of end user license agreement. So by definition, an end user license agreement is a legal contract between the software developer or publisher and the end user. This is now going to outline the right and restriction regarding the use of the software. Again, we have the aspect and their own explanation. For example, when it comes to functionality, this has to define permission uses of the software, ensuring users understand what the functionality are allowed or restricted. Or, for instance, usability, which is going to provide guidance, guidelines on how the software should be used, contributing to better usability by clarifying our user expectation. So maybe For instance, the company will now make available a user guide with everything that the end user needs to know when it comes to setting up and working with the new system. So to summarize, the table above highlight the critical importance of complying with legislation in human-computer interaction design, which is also covering the key aspects such as functionality, usability, reliability, efficiency, and maintainability, and portability. So each aspect is influenced by legal requirements that ensure system are secure, accessible, and user-friendly. Now we'll look into a merit in order for you to achieve a merit grade, you have to look into this learning outcome, where we're going to assess the importance of organizations meeting the requirements of current legislation and regulation. So what does this mean? It means that when coming to assessing the importance of organization meeting the requirement of current legislation and regulation. So what a company has to do, organization must meet this current legislation and regulatory requirements to ensure that various critical aspects of their operation are legally protected and ethically conducted. So it is important to know that there is a safety of employees, where you're going to ensure that the safety of our employees is a fundamental and legal obligation for the company. Compliance has to be met with health and safety regulations, such as the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, which I'm pretty sure every company has to introduce and make the employees aware of this act. So what are the legal compliance? This is for the safety regulation, which are going to help avoid legal actions from employees or authorities. Employees' well-being, where it's going to protect employees from workplace hazard, leading to healthier and more productive workplace. Reduced accident. So with this Health and Safety Act 1974, this is going to reduce accident, where it's going to minimize the risk of accident and injuries, reducing potential downtime and compensation claim. Then we have consumer protection, where organizations must comply with our consumer protection law to ensure that the product and service are safe, reliable, as described. So what are the importance? This has to be trustworthy and loyal, where this has to be built for the customer trust and loyalty by ensuring that our product is going to meet the safety and equality standards. Legal safeguards, where we're going to prevent legal action and fines result from non-compliance with our consumer laws. And then also finally we have market competitiveness, where we're going to enhance our organizational reputation for reliability and quality. Also, we have to be able to protect our intellectual properties, which is basically our copyright and patents, where compliance with intellectual property laws is essential for safeguard on organization innovation and creative works. So it is important when it comes to legal protection, where we're going to ensure exclusive right to investigation, design, and artistic works, preventing unauthorized use. So we basically is very much similar to our trademark concept. Revenue generation, where we're going to protect revenue streams which are coming from intellectual properties through licensing and sales. And lastly, we have innovation incentive, which we're going to encourage innovation by securing the legal benefit of new developments. Also, we have to avoid reputation damage, where we have to be able to maintain a positive reputation for our business success. And this happens with compliance with law and regulation. We are now going to play a significant role in this. Then we have importance, where we have to build trust, customer retention, and investor confidence. Also, we have to avoid penalties or sanction, where non-compliance with legal and regulation requirements can result in several financial and operational consequences. What's the importance? It is now going to protects us from financial penalties, operational distribution, and business continuity. So in conclusion, meeting the requirement of current legislation and regulation, it is of very much importance for our organization, where compliance has to ensure the safety of employees, protect our customers, stakeholders, and have to safeguard our intellectual property, and also maintain a positive reputation and avoid severe penalties. So this is everything from our first session. Is there any question for me?
Thanks,
Hi, John.
Victor. Let me just check. So was that because I think there's a distinction criteria as well, isn't there?
Sure, yeah. Evaluate the importance of current legal and regulatory issues on a chosen organization. Yes, we can cover that one right now.
We can go over it tomorrow if that'd be easier.
Yeah.
This is quite a long presentation
Yes.
slide, isn't it? It's like 98 slides. It's quite a lot of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So we can.
Yeah, you say. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to achieve a distinction, we can cover that today or tomorrow, whenever.
Yeah. Let me just. Yeah. Yeah. No, I probably will. Tomorrow is just 5 slides as well. Yes. Quite beefy these
Yeah.
these ones, these first couple. I think how much, let's just see. Oh,
And
the
then
presentation
there is like examples. 1 second, where it is. Because once we've completed that distinction one, we're now looking into an evaluation of impact of current legal and regulatory issues on UK Versity Online. So this is very much like an example for you to understand how these laws is like an example for you to understand how these laws are implemented for UK Versity.
Yeah.
So this is very much helpful for you when it comes to like writing the assignment, where it covers every learning outcome that we spoke about today.
Okay, so it covers all of them, sort of like again, but related back to sort of how UK universities used it.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
that's why it's a lot of
So long.
slides. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. That's great. Well, how much more is the distinction criteria? Because that'd be good to cover. Gonna be another lecture.
What is oh yeah, here. I think is a couple of slides there. Let's get into them.
Yeah, cool.
So to achieve a distinction, we will now have to be able to evaluate the impact of current legal and regulatory issues of a chosen organization. Yeah, so basically, as we see in the chosen organization is UK Versity. So what we will do here, we have to evaluate of the impact of current legal and regulatory issues of UK Versity Online. So we have to be able to provide an online education and training. So basically we introduce UK Versity, which is a provider of online education and training, which operate in a high regulated environment where compliance with the legal and regulatory requirements is paramount, where this evaluation, in this evaluation, we will now assess the impact of data protection laws, cybersecurity standards, consumer protection regulation, and intellectual property laws on UK Versity Online. So we have data protection laws, where we look into legislation with the general data protection regulation, some general GDPR and data protection. So looking at the impact, we have data security, where UK Versity must implement data protection measures to safeguard student and staff personal data, which now involves to secure storage, processing, and transmission of data to prevent breaches. Data subject right, which is where the organization must ensure that it respects and facilitates the right of individuals under GDPR. Then we have compliance cost, where we're going to be ensuring compliance requires significant investment in technology and training, where UK Versity Online needs to allocate resources to maintain data protection compliance, which can increase operational costs. Reputation and trust, where with the compliance with GDPR enhances the organizational reputation and build trust with the student, who are assured that the data is handled responsibly. Then we have cybersecurity standards, where we're looking at ISO and IEC 27001 and Cyber Essential, where when it comes to risk management, with these standards, which is going to help UK Versity Online to systematically manage any sort of risk associated with information security. And this will now include implementing policies, procedures, and control to protect against cyber threats. Then we have certification benefits, where it's going to obtaining certifications such as Cyber Essential that can enhance the organizational credibility. So as mentioned, they can now add the badge to the website, which will now give more credibility to their organization. Operational integrity, where strong cybersecurity practice ensure the integrity and availability of online learning platforms, where this is essential for providing uninterrupted educational service and maintaining user confidence. Then we have cost implication, where while achieving and maintaining compliance with these standards, it now involves cost, which for the long term is going to benefit and reduce the risk and enhance security, which can be often outweighed in the initial investment. Then we have consumer protection regulation, where this legislation is the Consumer Rights Act 2015, where we're now going to have transparency and fair practice, where UK Versity must ensure that its marketing and contractual terms are transparent and fair. This is going to include clear communication about courses content, fees, and refund policies. Also, we will now have dispute resolution, legal liability, and student confidence. Also looking into the intellectual property laws, which is under the Copyright in Design and Patent Act 1988, where the content protection, we're looking into content protection, and UK Versity must ensure that its educational material are protected by copywriting. This include securing intellectual property's right for courses content, which prevent unauthorized use and distribution. Then lastly, we have the compliance with licensing, innovation, incentive, and legal and financial risks. So to conclude, compliance with current legal and regulatory issues has a significant impact for UK Versity Online, which it ensures that the protection of personal data, enhance cybersecurity, uphold consumers' right, and safeguard intellectual property, while compliance requires substantial investment in terms of technology, training, and processes, the benefit will now include enhanced trust, reduce legal risks, and improve operational integrity. So this is everything we needed to know for our distinction section, learning outcome. So I hope this was clear. Is there any question?
Yeah, that was good. Thank you. One question I suppose I got is around, it's not necessarily about any specific criteria. It's more like where it asks, like, for example, where it's like talk about like the legal legislation and stuff like that. And obviously in the slides, I think it's probably like listed off like 7 different like legislation things that you can sort of be discussing. Obviously I'm trying to keep within a word count. So if I'm like to write about 7 in detail, then that's going to take up a lot of the word count. So what's sort of like the expectation about like
you could
like
you could
2 or
include
3 or
3, maximum 4, depending on
Okay,
you don't
cool.
it's not necessary to add 7 of them.
Yeah,
I'd say maximum of 4 would do. If you still have a bit more, space left for you, then you can add 1 more.
All right, Brendan, then I'll aim for sort of like 3 or 5. Because usually when it says like, oh, talk about a range of things, then I think, oh, a range that needs to be at least a minimum be 3. Or let's say like just 1 in detail, in which case that's obviously a 1. But sometimes it's so vague, I'm not sure how many to write. So no, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, that is okay for today then. and see you tomorrow.
All right, brilliant. Thanks for today,
Okay.
Victor. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, have a good day.
You too. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.